coming up soon, in about 10-15 lines. So we the first line of 25a, third word, we're in the middle. We had that case where you eat four things on Yom Kippur, where you did four things wrong on Yom Kippur, really five. Four, you're liable to sin offering, and one, you're liable to guilt offering. And the question was, why don't you mention another case of a shvuah, an oath, that you're not going to eat dates and chalev. And we mentioned it probably was taking place erev Yom Kippur, before Yom Kippur, and that should be a fifth one. Yeah. So says the Ravina Amar. Ravina answers, Ki katani. When did we teach that brisa? It was speaking about midi dechayo, and midi de barachilahu, on things that could go on food. Shvuah the chayla amidi de la barachilahu lo katani. Shvuah can even work for things that aren't food related, as we'll see a whole mission in a second about that. So we only taught things regarding food in that brisa. Therefore, shvuah was not taught. Doesn't matter, but you taught a case of hektish, sanctifying something. V'harei hektish techal nami eitzim avanim. Hektish, you can make trees and rocks holy also. And yet you did teach a case of sanctity of hektish, so that's not a good distinction. Ella kikatani the chayil amida de ispe mashasha. Shvuah the chayil amida de leisba mashasha. Kigon she ishan v'shlo ishan lo katani. That brisa was teaching cases that are working, that are going to obligate you on something which has substance. It's substantial. A shvuah can even work for things that aren't substantial. What does it mean not substantial? I don't know a better word for that. Mashasha, it's even things that are not tangible. That's a better word. Things that are tangible. For example, I will sleep or I won't sleep. So that is a mishnah coming up right now. That's a case where sleep is not something which is tangible. As we'll see, a neder doesn't work on sleep or not sleep, because a neder has to be on an object. Shvuah does work. So that which we mentioned, the four sin offerings and the one ashram guilt offering, was referring to cases that are tangible. That's why that case wasn't taught. But don't think that it's a proof that that this rule of Isser Kollel that applies even to things from your own, does not apply to things that you made from your own mouth, and only applies to a case like a nevela on Yom Kippur. Really, it does apply. Just that case is only speaking about things that are tangible. Things that are not tangible, it wasn't speaking about. Okay. Next Mishnah with more examples and details of Shavuos. So a little bit of like a headline. Echad dvarim shalatzma v'echad dvarim shalachirim. Things regarding yourself, things regarding others. V'echad dvarim sheish ben mamish. Things that are tangible. V'echad dvarim shein ben mamish. Things that are not tangible. Okay, so that's a little bit of a headline. Ketzad. What's the case? Omar, you say. A person says, Shvuah she'eten le'ish ploni v'shelo eten she'nasati v'shelo nasati. A person makes a shvuah, I will give to somebody. I will give him something tomorrow. Or I will not give him. Or I gave him, or I didn't give him. Or she'ishan v'shelo ishan. I will sleep, or I will not sleep. Or she'yashanti v'shelo yashanti. I slept, or I didn't sleep. You're making all of these. You're making an oath on all of these cases. She'ezrok tzror layam. I will throw a stone into the water. V'shelo ezrok. Or I will not throw a stone into the water. Go rock throwing. She'zarakti. I threw a stone in the water. V'shelo zarakti. I did not throw a stone into the water. So all those are going to be cases that you're going to be liable. Says Rabbi Shmuel Omer Eino. Things are in the past. I threw, I slept, I gave. Those things are not going to be liable a korban for violating it b'shogeg. Why not? Because it says shenamar lehara o lehetiv. The Torah itself is talking in the future. It says you're making a shvuah on things that you will do or you will not do. I will eat, I won't eat. But things that are in the past, the Torah never spoke about. So therefore, you're only liable a korban by oaths that are future related, not past related. Amar lo Rabbi Akiva, im kain, if that's true, I'm very limited. Ein li ela dvarim sheish behen hara v'hatava. Dvarim she'ein ben hara v'hatava minayin. I'm only liable then for things that have hara v'hatava. Hara v'hatava means things that you're going to do. I will eat, I won't eat. Lahara is in the negative. Ra is right, evil. So lahara is I won't eat. You're prohibiting, you're restricting yourself. Lahativ is in the positive. You are obligating yourself. But let's say there are other things that are, that are not like that. Like, what would be an example? Not lahara lahativ. Like, you're going to throw a rock into the ocean. So, right, I guess that's not an example of lahara lahativ. That's just an action. You want to do an action, not that I will gain, I will eat, or I won't eat. Right, what would be the difference? Why? Throwing a rock is an example of that. It's not called positive or negative. It just is. Versus eating and not eating is considered positive and negative. What's the difference? I'm not exactly clear there.
The rock is more specific.
Oh, here, there, yeah. They point out here, Rashi from somewhere else. Laharo lahated means good or bad to yourself. Eating or not eating is either beneficial or harmful to yourself. Throwing a rock into the ocean doesn't make any difference to you. You did, you don't. So, ask Rabbi Akiva, you Rabbi Shmuel, who limit all the oaths only to future oaths. Well, don't you agree that things like throwing a rock into the ocean, if you make an oath to do that, you're going to be liable? So how do you include that? That's not lahara ulaheti. That's not beneficial or detrimental to you. So Amar lo, Rabbi Shmuel said to him, Mi ribuya kasav. I expound it. I have expositions that will include even cases that are not beneficial or harmful to me, like throwing a rock into the ocean. Amar lo, so Rabbi Akiva says back to Rabbi Shmuel, well, in ribuya kasav lakach, once you agree to me that you're more expansive than just future oaths, because you include things that are not limited to benefiting or harming yourself, such as throwing a rock into the ocean. So, and how do you know that? From exposition. Well, then, once you're expounding that, you could also expound things that are in the past. I gave, I slept, I ate. So, at the end of the day, Rabbi Shmuel, recess. Too much time to break. So at the end of the day, they agree that things like throwing a rock into the ocean you're going to be liable for. However, thank you. However, past oaths, they're going to argue. Rabbi Shmuel will hold only future oaths, and Rabbi Akiva will agree that even past oaths are liable. Okay. So now, before we get into all the cases of the Mishnah, the Brisa says, Tanur Banan, Chomer b'nedarim v'shvuos, a neder, one thing, a neder is always on an object, and a shvuah is on a person, right? The tissue box is prohibited to me, is called a neder. You make the tissue box prohibited. That's called a neder. A shvuah means I will not blow my nose, right? That's an oath. It's going on the person, not on the object. Yeah. So now that's a neder versus a shvuah. Chomer b'nedarim v'shvuos, chomer shvuos b'nedarim. And here you'll see the difference play its way out. Nedarim has something, a stringency, that shvuos does not have, and shvuos has a stringency that nedarim don't have. Let's see. Chomer b'nedarim, a stringency of nedarim, sha'nedarim chalim al dvar mitzvah. Kidvar rishos, masha'en kein mishos. So a neder, you could say, I am prohibiting this four-walled booth for myself from sitting in it. Well, then comes Sukkot, all of a sudden, you can't sit in that thing, right? You prohibited the structure from yourself. So you did it the 10th of Tishrei. No, that's Yom Kippur. Okay, not Yom Kippur. You did it the 13th of Tishrei, and then comes the 15th of Tishrei. Now you can't sit in your sukkah. But you cannot say, I will not sit in a sukkah. That you can't say. The Torah says you have to sit in a sukkah. Too bad for you. Goodbye. Yeah, it doesn't work. We're already obligated, very Shavuos related topic. We're already obligated from Har Sinai. You're already sworn by Har Sinai to keep the mitzvahs. That Har Sinai was not an event that happened. It's continuing to obligate you today. And if you try to violate it because of your oath at Har Sinai, it's not going to work. You can't have a shvuah on a shvuah. It doesn't work. So now, Chomer b'shvuos, shvuos shehashvuos chalos al darash ein bo mamish, kedavar sheish bo mamish. A shvuah can even go on intangible things, like tangible things, like I will not sleep. Sleep is not tangible, right? A neder goes on an object. So you have to have an object for it to go on. Imagine if you had spiritual glasses, a neder just is taking a regular thing and stamping it, right? Where they stamp, I don't know. What's the stamp they use nowadays? The emblem, I don't know. Yeah, the White House emblem. I don't know.
Oh.
When do you stamp things nowadays? I don't know. You have concrete. No, what else? I don't know. When do these? For your books at home, you stamp them? I don't know. When do you use a stamp?
An 11.
Mail letter. Okay, good idea.
Oh, okay.
I haven't mailed one in a while. So yeah, so
Like a mail stamp or
no, but that's like the little sticker. I mean, like
a stamp. Seal.
a seal. Yeah, when do you use a seal?
Let me get my seal.
When you go to a museum.
Your signature like
Okay, okay, a seal. Yeah, back when Jules was growing up, they used seals.
Seal. Only at the zoo. No?
Only at the zoo
like the certified thing.
to certify things. So,
Okay.
so what's an example?
Notary.
Notaries.
Yes.
Perfect. Notaries. Good. Thank you. Notaries. So just imagine a neder is just a notary. You're saying this is prohibited. And if we had spiritual glasses, you would see the isser on the object. Well, we don't. We have physical glasses, so we can't see it. But it's the same idea. So you need an object to put that notary on, right? To say usser and stamp it and seal it and notarize it. So a shvuah though is on the person. A person, you can say, I'm not going to. It doesn't have to be tangible. It's an action. I'm not going to go sleep. That's going to work. So Masha Ein Kein B'Nedar, another needs an object to be here for us to prohibit it. Okay. So now Keitzad Amar. So Keitzad Amar Shvuah Eten Leploni V'Shelo Eten. So the Mishnah had a case of you make a shvuah, I will give to somebody, or I will not give to somebody. So what's the case? My eten. What's the case of I will give to somebody? So ani, I will give to a poor person. So mushpa va'omer har Sinai. So you have to say it's talking about a case where you're obligated, right? The guy's in front of you. The guy needs money. Then you make a shvuah that you will give to him. You see a guy knock on your door, and you're worried that you might not keep, that you might forget to give him. You make a shvuah with the name of God. Don't do this, but you make a shvuah with the name of God that you will give him money. So now, what's the case? If it's a poor person who needs money, you have to give him already. So you don't have a choice. You're mushpa va'omer har Sinai. Har Sinai obligates you. You made an oath at Har Sinai, and therefore it obligates you. So says the Gemara, how do I know? Shinamar, no son titin lo. You should surely give him. Yeah, people would keep this. It would be amazing, right? Every Jew you know needs money. You try to give him a little bit, whatever you could give, right? It'd be amazing. Yeah. Ella matana la'ashir. Rather, what it means is the case of the Mishnah is a present to a rich person. You don't have to give that. You want to give that. It's his birthday. So you make a shvuah to give him a present. Fine. She'ishan v'shelo ishan. I will sleep. I will not sleep. So now, right now we understand that I will not sleep sounds like forever. I will not sleep. On that, the Gemara says, Inif, really? You can make a shvuah that you're not going to sleep forever and it works? If you say, I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, so we right away, Malkin so, we give you Malchus, V'yishin altar, and you better go to bed right away. Meaning that that's a shvuah that's not able to be kept. That's a shvuah, Rashi points out, that's a shvuah shav. It's a shvuah in vain. You can't not sleep for 3 days. Yeah. So what's the difference? Here we're saying I'm not going to sleep. Sounds like forever. And yet that does work. But I'm not going to sleep for 3 days. And that doesn't work. So how does it make sense? So Hasam de Amar Shlosha, Hakad de Lo Amar Shlosha. So there you specify, I'm not going to sleep for 3 days. Here we're not talking about you're not going to sleep forever. You didn't mention 3 days. So either it means you mentioned, let's say, 1 day or 2 days. Or when you say I'm not sleeping, What it means is for less than 3 days, because more than 3 days is impossible. So when you said I'm not going to sleep and it works, it's a case of less than 3 days, because more than 3 days is not a viable option. Okay. I will throw a rock into the ocean, or I will not throw a rock into the ocean. Now, what happens if you make a shvuah about somebody else? He will throw a rock into the ocean. So this is going to be a whole to do, which is going to lead to another whole to do. Yeah. So Itmar shvuah shezarak ploni tzor liyam. You make a shvuah that Reuven threw a rock into the ocean. Okay. You saw him throw a rock into the ocean, and you're making a shvuah, he threw a rock into the ocean. Vishalo zarak. And really, it turned out, right? It's not a second shvuah. Just, it turns out that he didn't throw, right?
Yeah.
You were wrong. Okay, well, yeah. He threw it. You're saying, not that you're saying that, that's what happened, right? He falsely swore, right. So he falsely swore, right. So you say Reuven threw a rock into the ocean. However, Bishlo Zarak, he didn't throw a rock into the ocean. Are you liable? Or are you not liable? So you'd say, why not? Of course not. You made a shvuah. You lied. So it's not good. Rav Amar Chayiv, yeah, that's a shvuah that you violated that shvuah. That's like saying I ate and really you didn't eat and you made a shvuah. The question is, what's with Shmuel? The Shmuel Amar Pater. Shmuel exempts you. It's the question, why are you exempt, right? What's the difference between Reuven threw a rock and versus I ate lunch yesterday? So Rav Amar Chayiv, Rav says you're Chayiv, why? Now here we get into some more details. Isay Bilav Vehain. So once again, the Torah says that when you make this kind of shvuah, what we call a shvuah's bitui, a shvuah of utterance, it says it in the future, okay, lahara'u lehetiv, but also lahara'u lehetiv means in the positive or the negative. So every shvuah has to be able to be said in the positive and the negative. So Rav says you're obligated. Why? Because he threw, he will throw. That's something which is possible to be said in the positive and in the negative. V'Shmuel Amar Pater. Shmuel says you're exempt. Why are you exempt? Leisei b'lahaba. Shmuel holds it also has to be able to be said in the future and in the past. Now, what's the future over here? You're talking about somebody else. He's not in your control. So how can you make a shvuah? He will throw a rock. He's not in your control. You can't predict that he will throw a rock. So since this shvuah, according to Shmuel, is not able to be, it's not in your control what someone else will do. So therefore, it's not considered a shvuah's bitui. Rather, it's going to be a shvuah for not a shvuah shav. Yeah, that's what Shmuel holds. One of the qualifications is that you have to. It has to be said in the future along with in the past. Since in the future is out of your control, that is going to be disqualified as this kind of oath. You will be exempt from bringing a sacrifice. Okay. So Rav holds, obviously in this case, he says it is going to be chayiv, right? Shmuel says you're pater. So yeah. Now let's see. Lema beplukta the Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiya kamiflagi. Maybe Rav and Shmuel, we always like to not increase in argument, but decrease, so to speak. So if you can find the two other Tanaim had the same argument, you've limited the machlokas, right? Versus making a brand new argument. Believe it or not, we do want to limit, even though it'll shorten the Daf Gemara, but we do. So yeah. So Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva kamiflagi. What do they hold? We had in our Mishnah. Rabbi Shmuel holds only future. Rabbi Akiva holds even past. The Tanan, Rabbi Shmuel, Omer Eino Chayv El Al Ha'asid, Lavo, you're only liable for future oaths. Shenamar, as the verse states, La Ra'u Lehetiv. Amar La Rabbi Akiva says to him, Kain Ein Li Elo, Dvarim Sheish Ben Harava Tava. Then I only have things that are either detrimental or are to me or are positive for me. Dvarim she'ein behen is just a copy and paste of our Mishnah. Dvarim she'ein behen arava tava minayin. How do I know about things that have no benefit to me, like throwing a rock into the ocean? So Amar Lo, to that Rabbi Shmuel responded to him, Miribuya kasav. I expound. There's expositions. Amar lo, well, im riba akasuv lekach, riba akasuv lekach. Rabbi Akiva says, well, once you're expounding for that, for oaths that have no relevance to you, then expound furthermore to oaths that are also in the past. Okay, but at the end of the day, we see that Rabbi Shmuel only has future oaths, and Rabbi Akiva has even past oaths. So now, Ruvain will throw a rock. Rav says chayiv, Shmuel says pater. Says the Gemara, very simple. Rav to Rabbi Akiva, Rav the Amar Rabbi Akiva, who Shmuel the Amar Rabbi Shmuel. Rav goes like Rabbi Akiva, even a future oath, and Shmuel, even a past oath. Ruvain threw the rock. Rav goes like Rabbi Akiva, it's a past oath. Who Shmuel says like Rabbi Shmuel, the Amar Rabbi Shmuel, that only future oaths, not past oaths. So right now the Gemara thinks Ruvain threw a rock is a machlokas, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel. Ruvain threw a rock, according to Rabbi Akiva, past and future, you're liable for both. According to Rabbi Shmuel, you're only liable for future oaths. So they line up very nicely. Rav like Rabbi Akiva, and Shmuel like Rabbi Shmuel. So, and that's the machlokas. Says the Gemara, no. Aliba de Rabbi Shmuel, according to Rabbi Shmuel, who only has future oaths, Kule Alma Lo Pligi. Nobody argues about Rabbi Shmuel. Everyone agrees that everyone agrees on what Rabbi Shmuel holds. Why? Hashta milsa de isibila haba lo mechayiv Allah Rabbi Shmuel. A thing in the future, a future oath, Rabbi Shmuel does not obligate you in. So l'sha'avar milsa delese bilahaba mibai. Rabbi Shmuel himself does not obligate you. Yeah, a future oath which could be a past oath which could be stated in the future. Rabbi Shmuel still exempts you because he doesn't hold of past tense oaths. Even though, let's say, I ate in the past, that could be also in the future. I will eat, and still Rabbi Shmuel exempts you because he only has future oaths, doesn't have past oaths. Even if it's something which you could say in the future, for sure, an oath like this of Ruvain threw a stone in the ocean, which you're unable to say a future oath about because you can't control Ruvain what he will or what he won't do, for sure he'll exempt you. That everyone agrees to. No one's going to argue in the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. So that's not where their argument is. Ki pligi, where do Rav and Shmuel argue? Aliba de Rabbi Akiva. They argue according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva has future and past. Rav ki Rabbi Akiva. Rav holds like Rabbi Akiva, who obligates past oaths the same way he obligates future oaths. The Shmuel Amar like this. Ad kama mechay Rabbi Akiva hasam l'sha'avar. Rabbi Akiva only said that if you make an oath regarding the past, I ate, I slept, that's only ela b'milsa the isib haba. Rabbi Akiva says that according to according to Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva says, yes, I agree that there are such things as past oaths. I ate, I gave, I slept. However, those are all things which you could say in the future. I will eat, I will give, I will sleep. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva, those kinds of past oaths, Rabbi Akiva agrees to. But if you have a past oath, which you're not able to say in a future tense, for example, Ruvain, somebody else did something, so the past, you could testify about the past. The problem is the future. What do you mean he will throw? You don't know that. So you can't, that's called that's not going to be a vow of utterance. So Ela Milsa the Isabella Haba Mechay Rabbi Akiva Akam Mechay Rabbi Akiva Hasam L'Shavar Ela Milsa the Isabella Haba Mechay Rabbi Akiva L'Shavar Aval Mide the L'Isabella Haba, something which you can't make a future oath about. Look, that he's not going to agree to. So that there's the machlokas Rav and Shmuel is how expansive is Rabbi Akiva's past oath? Is it referring to all past oaths, or it's referring to only past oaths that also can be said in the future? It's interesting, right? According to Rabbi Akiva, the Torah only spoke about future oaths, according to everybody. That's what the Torah says. But he expounds, he adds that also past oaths. So it's interesting. How do you understand that? Is that like a new section? So we add in like a new section, right? A past oath. No relevance to the future oath. It's its own category. There's future and there's oath. They're not connected. That's one way to understand it, maybe. Or no, when the Torah added past oaths, it's connected to future oaths. It's not a whole new category, a whole new section. It's a past oath, but it's still limited. It's limited to the future oaths. That might be what's behind a little bit Rav and Shmuel. Fine. So that's the Gemara says is attempt number 2. How limited and how expansive is Rabbi Akiva's past oaths? Okay. But don't worry, that's the Gemara says, lo, that's not the machlokas. Lema beplukta, the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira v'Rabbanan. Totally different thing now. Not totally different, but maybe the machlokas is between Rav and Shmuel is actually a machlokas Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and the Rabbanan. What do they argue about? Rabbanan Kimiflagi. They argue about what we've spoken about already many times. Can you make a shvuah to prohibit yourself from doing a mitzvah? Or make a shvuah, make an oath, to fulfill a mitzvah? So until now, we kept saying, no. You can't do that. You're already obligated from Har Sinai. However, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is going to argue. Ditnan, as we have in a Mishnah in a daf and a half from now, Nishba levatel es mitzvah. A guy says, I'm not sitting in a sukkah. I'm not sitting in a sukkah. You make a shvuah to nullify a mitzvah. And now you didn't do it. You sat in the sukkah. You made a shvuah, I'm not sitting in a sukkah. I'm not shaking lulav and esrog. I'm not eating matzah on Pesach. And then you go, you sit in the sukkah, you shake lulav and esrog, you ate matzah on Pesach. So now, are you lying? What did you say?
Sounds like a 4-year-old.
Sounds like a 4-year-old. That's why they're exempt from shvuos, right? So below bit, and you did not do it. You ate matzah, you sat in the sukkah. Pater, you're exempt. L'kaim es a mitzvah. I will shake a lulav. I will sit in the sukkah. I will eat the matzah. You make that shvuah, velo kiyam, and you did not fulfill it. Pater, you're exempt. You're exempt. Why? Because you can't nullify mitzvahs, and you can't obligate yourself on a mitzvah if you're already obligated. You're already obligated. Right? Yeah. So someone tells you to do something, and then they repeat themselves. So what ramification does that have to you? Maybe it means hurry up, but yeah, it doesn't. You can't be obligated. You're already going. You're on your way. Go get me a glass of milk. You're on your way. So then she asks you again, go get me a glass of milk. It doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, obviously you respond nicely. Of course, like, what? Do you want 2 glasses of milk? Like what? So a shvuah is the same thing. You're already obligated to keep the mitzvah. So what does the shvuah do? What does it do for you? Obligates you, you're already obligated. So apparently it has to do something. It has to practically do something for you. It can't just stay in the luf. So, yeah. Oh, so badin sheikhayev. You would have thought though maybe you'd be obligated to nullify or to obligate yourself in a mitzvah. Why? Kediver Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. What does he hold? A novel opinion. Dam Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Uma'im harishus. Things that are voluntary, she'enu mushpa le'amar Sinai, that you are not obligated from Har Sinai, harehu chayiv aleha, and yet you make a shvuah, and you will obligate yourself. Mitzvah, a thing that you're already obligated in, for sure you could obligate yourself. Mitzvah shemushal le'amar Har Sinai, eino din she'chayiv aleha. You should for sure be obligated. If you're not obligated, and you could obligate yourself. If you're already obligated, for sure you should be obligated. So to that they respond to him, Amru lo, im amris b'shvuos harishos. So it's interesting. According to Rabbi Dovid Gleizer, like how does he understand? Does a shvuah not have to have any practical difference to your life? Right? I mean, it's hard to understand. I'm so convinced the other way. You're already obligated. What can obligate you more? It'll obligate you twice? I don't know. It's interesting. But to him, the rabbis respond like this. Amru lo, what's their response to him? Lo. Im amris b'shvuos harishos, if you have a voluntary shvuah, shekain asa b'lav kehain, where you could do something or not do something, that's one of the qualifications. I can eat, I cannot eat. So you have to make a shvuah that you're able to say in the positive and the negative. If not, it's not going to register as a shvuas bitui, as an oath of utterance. It's not going to work. So says the rabbis to him, a voluntary shvuah has to be able to be done and not able to to be done. I will eat, I won't eat, I will give, I won't give. Tomar b'shvuas mitzvah shekain lo asa balav kehain. A shvuas mitzvah, you can't have it in the negative. I will not sit in a sukkah. That for sure doesn't work. You can't go against the Torah. The Torah says, yeah, you can't say no. So the rabbis told them, maybe even according to you, let's say, that you want to obligate yourself again in sitting in the sukkah. Fine. But that can't be done in the negative. You can't do it, I won't sit in the sukkah. So that lav vehain doesn't work. So therefore they argue on him. And they say, since you cannot have a shvuah to fulfill a mitzvah, in the negative to nullify a mitzvah, therefore it's not going to work. Okay. Sounds like according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, you don't need that qualification. Because if you would need it, then it wouldn't work. It must be he doesn't need this qualification. Okay. Now, why is it relevant to us? Our case was Reuben threw a stone. He threw a stone. What was the problem with that? Rav and Shmuel had an argument. Can you say that'll happen in the future? Reuben will throw a stone. Well, you can't predict the future, right? You can't control him. So we're saying Rav says you're obligated, and Shmuel says you're exempt. So maybe Rav and name a Rav the Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Maybe Rav will hold like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, and Shmuel will hold Kirabanan. Now the Gemara is making one jump. Really, there's a case of a positive or a negative, or I will eat or I won't eat, which, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, you don't have by mitzvahs. You don't have by mitzvahs, I will not do the mitzvah. That doesn't work. So that's called the category of hein v'lav. Basically, do and don't do. Do and don't do. I could do and I can't do. I can eat, I can't eat. I will give, I won't give. Mitzvah, you don't have that. It's only, according to him, I will do a mitzvah. But you can't, so I won't do a mitzvah. That's called hein v'lav. Now there's another category called lishahaba or lishavar, in the past and in the future. It has to be a mitzvah, it has to be an oath, a shua, which can be done in the past and can be done in the future. I will eat, I ate, I will eat. I slept, I will sleep. I ran, I will run, right? Reuven threw, or Reuven will throw, well, I don't know. I can't control Reuven. So that was a debate, Rav and Shmuel. So the Gemara is making a jump now. Just like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira does not have a category of hein v'lav, yes and no, meaning because he has a shvuah that you can fulfill a mitzvah, but yet you can't say that same shvuah in the negative, and yet he still obligates you. So maybe the Gemara is thinking he also doesn't have a category of past and future. You can have a past shvuah, and even if you can't say it in the future, it doesn't matter. So he could have a Reuven threw, and the fact that you can't make a shvuah, Reuven will throw, doesn't matter to him. The same way you can make a shvuah to fulfill a mitzvah, even though you can't make it to violate a mitzvah. So we're making that jump. Just like he doesn't have one category, maybe he's not going to have the other category. And obviously that we're going to break that assumption. So, no. According to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, everyone agrees what he will hold. Hashta lav vehain lo bai, just like a negative action or a positive action, he does not require lav vehain lo bai, meaning your shvuah can be said in the positive, and it doesn't have to be said in the negative. I will sit in a sukkah, that's fine. The fact that I can't say I will not sit in a sukkah doesn't make my other oath not an oath. It's still an oath. La vehain lo bai. He doesn't need that. Doesn't require that. Lehaba'u l'shavar bai. But for sure he needs the requirement of future and past. That he for sure needs. No one argues on that. He also needs future and past, which means that he will also agree that Reuven threw the stone. Right now we would assume should not be good, since you cannot make a shvuah, an oath. Reuven will throw a stone. So where do they argue? According to the rabbis, ki pligia liba de rabbanan. According to the rabbis that say that you need hein v'lav, your shvuah has to be in the positive and in the negative. That's why you cannot make a shvuah, I will sit in a sukkah, because you can't make it in the negative. I won't sit in the sukkah. So aliba de rabbanan, Shmuel, aliba de rabbanan. Shmuel kirabanan. Shmuel goes like the rabbis, and who require a past and a future. Therefore, since Ruvain, you can't say Ruvain will throw a stone. Even when you say Ruvain threw a stone, that's not going to be good. That's Shmuel. The Rav, what does Rav hold? Kilo mechavi rabbanon belav vehein. The rabbis only say, not future and past. They don't. Kilo mechavi rabbanon. When do they not obligate you in the oath? That's belav vehein. When you make a shvua, an oath, which you cannot say in the positive or in the negative. It has to be able to be said in both. Why? The Torah says lahara, that's the negative, like ra, or lehetiv, that's in the positive. Behedya. That it says explicitly lahara or lehetiv, positive, negative. Aval lehaba or l'sha'avar, the requirement of having an oath, that the oath has to be able to be said in the past and the future. That's the miribuya dekray asu. Mechayvi, that's added in through exposition. So, according to Rav, that's through exposition. So when they expound those oaths that are able to be said in the past, so you don't have the requirement that it has to also be said in the future. Even if it's just said in the past, that would be enough. If that's true, then that would be like Rav. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So that is that. So at the end of the day, Rav and Shmuel argue, according to the Rabban, according to the rabbis, that when you have a past oath that was included through exposition, does it also have to be? Does that oath have to have this stipulation of it has to be said in the future as well, or not? Yeah. Okay. Now let's ask a few questions. Masiv Rav Hamnuna. So Rav Hamnuna has a question. Lo achalti hayom v'lo hanakti tefillin hayom. A guy says, I did not eat today. I did not put on tefillin today. So now, mashbiach hani, make a shvua to me that you didn't put on tefillin today, that you didn't eat today. This is like the Chabad Shaliach, you can imagine, right? He's not sure if put on tefillin or not today. So he told him, swear to me that you didn't put on tefillin today. And the guy says, Amen. And the guy says, Amen. Good timing, no? So yes. So yeah. So either I'm a prophet, I don't know what. So Amar Amen. And the guy says Amen. So we're gonna learn. That's right. So we're gonna learn in the future that saying Amen is also a valid way of saying a shvuah. Very interesting. Someone says something from the parsha of Sota. They make her swear. She says Amen. Now, what does Amen mean? Coming up in 4 daf. Okay. I guess Shabbos. So it's a Friday. Sorry, not Friday. Friday, not Shabbos. So Erev Shabbos. So if you say that, and you say the guy says Amen, for Amar Amen, he says Amen. Amen, which would mean that he's making a shvuah. I did not eat today. I did not put on tefillin today. Chayiv, you're obligated. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. Bishma lo achalti isei below ochel. I didn't eat. You could say I will not eat. That's a past and that's a future. Ela lo hanachtin. I didn't put on tefillin today. You cannot say that in the future. I will not put on tefillin. It doesn't work. You're obligated. Too bad. So how does that work? How come when he says Amen to such a shvuah, that shvuah is good? That shvuah doesn't exist in the future world. I will not put on tefillin. Therefore, it should also not exist in the past. I did not put on tefillin. That should not work. Mi ise below aniach. So Rav Hamnuna asked the question, and often you come up with your own answers. Who mosiv la b'hu mefargla? He asked it, he answered it. Litzdadin katani. These two cases, I will not eat, or I didn't eat, and I didn't put on tefillin today, are litzdadin. Litzdadin means to the sides, meaning they're going to be talking about different cases. They're mentioned in one sentence, but they're going to be talking about different cases. One's going to be talking about the obligation of a korban, and one's going to be talking about if you get malchus. All of these requirements that are learned out of the pasuk lahara ulahetiv, positive, negative, future, past, that's all in the world. If you violate it inadvertently, are you obligated an oath? That's what that is. Does it have to be future and past? But for Malchus, to get lashes, you don't need this qualification. So when we said I will not eat, yeah, so that I did not eat, so that you're right. Since that's able to be said in the future, if you violate it inadvertently, you'll be liable a korban. I did not put on tefillin today, so since that is not able to be said in the future, you will not be obligated a korban. However, you will still get malchus. You'll still get lashes. You still violated a shvuah. You'll get lashes. Lo achalti lekorban, lo hanachti lemalchus. I didn't put on tefillin today. That's regarding malchus. Another one, masiv rava ezuhi shvuah shav. What's an example of a classic example of a shvuah that's totally in vain, vanity, has nothing to it? Shav. Nishbo l'shanas esayadua la'adam. You change something which is known to people. We know this table is a table. You make a shvuah that it's a chair. That's vanity. That's nothingness. The amar ala amar shel evan shehu shel zav. You talk about a pillar of a rock and you say it's gold. So the Amar Ula, what does it mean? It has to be known to people. Very interesting. The Husha Nikar L'Shlosha B'nei Adam. 3 people is often the amount you use for doing something in public. In public, someone violates Shabbos in public. What does public mean? 3 people. So, yeah, Nikar L'Shlosha B'nei Adam. So now, says the Gemara, it sounds like this is all predicated on the fact if 3 people know, but the fact that you can't make a future vow, that's irrelevant. Time of the Nikar, hollow Nikar. But if it wasn't, let's say it wasn't, you made an oath about something which people didn't know about. You built in your backyard a pillar of a stone. No one's seen it yet. Yeah, and you made a shvuah about it that it's gold when really it's stone. So 3 people don't know about it. So then sounds like it's not going to be good. Time of the nicker, but hollow nicker, over mishum shvuas bitui. If it's not known to people, so it sounds like that's going to be considered a shvuah of utterance and not a shvuah shav. Shvuah shav is for not; it's nothing. So if everyone knows it's stone and you say it's gold, that's nothing. But if only you know that it's stone and nobody else, and then you make a shvuah that it's really gold, so the Gemara now thinks that might be considered a shvuas bitui, a regular shvuah of an utterance. What we're talking about. Says the Gemara, hold on, Valamai, how can you say that? There's no future oath to that. It will be gold. How's it going to be gold? It's going to transform. Magic. What's going to happen to it? It's a pillar of stone in your backyard. It's not turning gold. And yet it sounds like you are obligated for such an oath. So once again, he asked it and he answered the question. Like what it means is like this. Nicker, if it's known to 3 people over Mishum Shvuah Shav. You're obligated a shvuah of vanity, of nothingness. Everyone knows it's a rock and not gold. If you say that, so then you violated that shvuah. Lo nicker, if it's not known to anybody, just to you or to one other person, only 2 people, not 3 people, then you're over mishum shvuah sheker. Then it's not a shvuah's bitu that you're over, a shvuah of utterance. Rather, it's a shvuah of falsehood. It's just false. You're making a shvuah about something which is a stone, which is saying that it's gold. That's just false. So that's not considered a shvuah's bitu. So at the end of the day, the 3-person qualification is coming to tell you when you have 3 people and you make a shvuah that's that of things that aren't true, that's called a shvuah shav. It's a shvuah of nothingness. Everyone knows it's not true. When people don't know that it's not true, less than 3 people, so we thought at first it was a shvuah's bitui. It'll be a shvuah of utterance, which when we had a problem because there's no future application of that, it will become gold. That we say no. Rather, it's only going to be, it's going to be considered a shvuah sheker. It's going to be a shvuah of falsehood and not a shvuah's bitui, and therefore you don't have a problem anymore. There's no kasha. Okay, I'll stop here.